Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Your Cheddar, presented by Ally. We are live from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. I'm Kristen Schuller, and this is my co-host, Corey Hale.
Hello, Kristen. Hello, Ched heads out there. Now, Cheddar has teamed up with Ally to bring you Your Cheddar, the show that gives you savings and spending strategies, and of course, career advice from experts who know exactly what they're doing. Ally is a leading digital financial services company offering competitive online banking, auto finance, credit card, home loan, and of course, investment products and services. They do focus on innovation and are committed to doing right by you and your cheddar.
That is right. While Ally Financial is the presenting sponsor of this program, the opinions and statements expressed in the following segments are our own. And let's jump right in.
Yes, we shall. The number of job openings in the U.S. hit a record high in April, while on the other hand, hiring did slow down. This according to a new report from the Labor Department. The number of job openings rose by almost 260,000 in April to 6.04 million, the highest level on record. However, the number of hires fell by 253,000 to 5.05 million. Now, some economists are surmising this indicates that the ranks of unemployed or out of the workforce Americans may not have the skill set employees are currently looking for.
Right, and this is something that people have been saying now for several years now, that skilled workers are really the ones that are in most demand in the economy right now, and whether that's developers, programmers, whatever it may be, of course, it differs for every separate industry. But this is a conversation and a topic that has been one within the jobs market for several years now.
Yes, it has. In this particular survey that the Labor Department did, I mean, it's more detailed than that regular monthly jobs report that we talk about on the first Friday of the month. Primarily, this particular jobs report, it details the monthly jobs report, tracks the place at which people start jobs, when they quit jobs, or even when they are laid off. So it is a bit more detailed, and of course the number of job openings overall.
And of course, if presumably you do get more skilled workers in some of these positions where there are job openings, that could lead to a rise in wages, which again, within the jobs market, many people have been waiting for that bump up in wages to match the increasing number of jobs added each month.
I will say, even though we were talking about it, perhaps they're looking for more high-skilled workers, these companies are, there have been a lot of job openings and jobs being filled in more of the accommodation and food services sector, like hotels, restaurants, those sort of jobs.
That's right. Okay, well, while the financial crisis did end years ago, younger investors are still feeling the effects. According to Legg Mason's recently released global investment survey, 82% of millennial investors said their investment decisions were influenced by the financial crisis. While that influence has led them away from the kind of assets that have been soaring since the market bottomed out in 2009, since it bottomed in 2009, the survey indicated that younger investors are now showing a growing willingness to invest in the stock market. Nearly 80% of millennial investors surveyed said they plan to take more risk this year, with 66% expressing interest specifically in stocks. So while young investors are optimistic about the market overall, they are split along gender lines. 86% of millennial women said they were optimistic, while only 69% of male millennial investors claim to be optimistic.
Well, another split down those gender lines, Kristen, something we see quite often. But there are also some experts that are saying, hey, even if perhaps you didn't get in on the U.S. markets when you had time, that you could maybe perhaps look into the overseas markets, those international markets, which currently are sharply underperforming the U.S. market. So there's still that upside if you get in now with the international markets, because they are expected to reverse that trend.
And we'll talk a little bit more too about timing the market and suggestions, recommendations in relation to that a little bit later in the show. So stay tuned for that. We're going to talk more about that in a few segments.
We sure will. And up next, guys, we're going to find out how to stop your brain from tricking you into losing money. But first, here are 5 easy steps to help you stop overspending.
I'm millennial money expert and author Stephanie O'Connell from stephanieoconnell.com, and I'm here today to share my favorite tips to help you stop overspending. According to data from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, 1 in 10 millennials overdrafts more than 10 times every year. With a median overdraft fee of $34, overdrafting could be costing you as much as $340 every year. And if you're relying on high interest rate credit card debt to cover the cost of impulse buys and other spending beyond your means, it could be costing you a lot more than that. Here are 5 strategies to help you break the cycle of overspending so that you can keep more of your money for yourself. 1. Institute a 24-hour hold policy. The next time you're faced with overwhelming temptation to make a purchase, give yourself a day before making a decision. If you can tear yourself away from that in-the-moment urge to buy, you may be surprised at how quickly that temptation fades away. 2, consider your cost versus labor. In other words, how many hours of work would it take for you to be able to afford the purchase you're considering? By thinking about how many hours it will take you to make a purchase, it might put it into perspective of whether that purchase is really worthwhile. 3, give your inbox a makeover. If overspending is a problem area, do you really think weekly emails advertising the latest discounts to your favorite stores and travel destinations are really working in your favor? Unsubscribe from newsletters and any other messages of consumption that might tempt you to overspend. 4, keep your big picture goals top of mind. The key to smart spending is bringing your day-to-day actions into alignment with your big picture goals. The problem is those big picture goals largely only exist in our own mind. So bring that big picture top of mind front and center by creating visual, tangible reminders of them and strategically placing them around your life. 5, use technology to stay accountable. For an in-the-moment gut check of whether a purchase is really in line with your goals and on track with your spending plan, use an app like Mint or Level Money that tracks your budget and your spending to stay accountable. With these 5 strategies, you can stay accountable in the day-to-day to your big picture money goals and stop overspending on stuff you don't need.
Welcome back to your Cheddar, presented by Ally. Ally, of course, is a leading digital financial services company committed to doing right by you and your Cheddar.
That's right, and joining us now is Gary Belsky, former editor-in-chief of ESPN Magazine, columnist for Time.com, and author of Why Smart People Make Big Money Mistakes and How to Correct Them. Gary, thanks for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure.
All right, so in your book, you talk about behavioral economics. We're showing it right here on the screen. For viewers that aren't familiar with that term, let's start by defining what exactly behavioral economics is.
Behavioral economics is essentially the study of how people make judgments in the world and then how that affects the choices they make as they go through life. A lot of the research was done around financial choices because you can write formulas about it, because it applies to almost everything people do. When you think about decisions in life, it's about how you use your resources. Money is a proxy for resources, but it really applies to almost anything.
Gary, let's go through some examples then exactly of how risk really impacts or factors into people's personal financial decision.
Well, one of the basic principles of behavioral economics is something called loss aversion, which basically says that people will react about twice as strongly to the loss of a given amount of money as they will to the gain of the same amount of money, which at first sounds normal, but in fact most economic theory was based on the idea that people treated losses and gains equally. And so what that means is that people in general are too risk averse when they're making financial decisions. So for example, a lot of the reason why people have a hard time selling losing investments, stocks, mutual funds, real estate, et cetera, is because until they actually sell it, they haven't really booked that loss. And because we are so afraid of losses, we often wait too long to sell bad investments because we're hoping maybe in the back of our heads that it'll come back, when instead we should say, that's a leaky boat, I should get rid of that boat.
Can you give a more concrete example? Maybe just break down the numbers here in terms of like your actual money that would be impacted. So if I was to gain $100, you're saying that I would actually I would be excited.
Let me give you a different example.
Okay.
Imagine that you were saving money for your kids' college and you bought two stocks, both of them for $10,000. And now it's 10 years later and one of the stocks is now worth $5,000 and the other stock is worth $20,000. One doubled, one got cut in half. And now you had to take out, let's just say $5,000 to pay for the first semester of college. Instinctually, which one would you sell? The stock that's now worth $5,000 or take $5,000 from the $20,000 stock? Most people would take $5,000 from the $20,000 stock because they don't want to get rid of that. They don't want to sell out their losing shares because they kind of don't want to realize the loss. Instead, what people are doing is basically selling the good stocks and holding on to the weak stocks. So it makes people overly conservative and not able to judge appropriately what a good investment is because they're risk averse.
Okay, so would you categorize this as sort of a mental accounting, right? And we know that obviously based on some of your examples here, people can lose money sometimes by thinking irrationally or not being aware of it.
Yes, mental accounting essentially is this idea that we treat money differently depending on where we keep it, where we earn it, who gave it to us. So I will be much more likely to spend money, say, that my grandmother gave me as a gift than I will from money that I earned at work, even though the money is the same. And mental accounting is one of the reasons why people will keep emergency savings, but also have credit card debt. And the emergency savings might be, earning them 1% at the most a year annually, right? $1,000, I might be earning $10 a year in the bank. But if I have $1,000 in credit card debt, that's costing me about $180 a year. But people mentally account for emergency savings different than they do credit card debt. I would argue, pay off the credit card debt with that $1,000, and if you have an emergency, use your empty credit card. That's another example of how behavioral economics sort of changes the way we think about how we make financial decisions.
Well, you know what? When it comes, though, to the broader, context of behavioral economics, something that's been more and more widely used in the past couple of years, when I think about millennials and their impact when it comes to the broader tenets, like people are saying invest in your 401k, diversification, that sort of thing. I mean, is there a difference in the way that impacts a younger investor?
Well, yeah, I think one of the things we know is that people have a hard time saving money because they experience saving as a loss, oddly enough. They experience it as a loss in buying power today, right? I make $1,000 every 2 weeks and somebody suggests that I save $50 from that paycheck. I can't imagine doing that because I experience that as a loss in buying power, even though I'm saving it and later on it'll be worth a lot of money. So one of the lessons from behavioral economics is to get people to commit to saving that money without ever actually seeing it in their check, to have a direct deposit from your check either into a 401k or into another bank account. And what happens is within a couple of weeks, you don't even experience yourself as earning $1,000 and saving $50. You just experience yourself as earning $950, and magically people are able to live their life spending $950 as opposed to $1,000, and as a result of that savings, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years later, they have thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars saved because they removed the loss aversion, they removed the psychological bias to saving that even though it doesn't make sense, we all feel, and it's the reason why people think they never have enough money to save. Invariably, if you take away 10% or 5% and put it into a bank account, put it into a 401k, within a few weeks, you'll stop even thinking that you're saving. You'll just take your new paycheck and think that's the amount of money I earn.
Is there a strategy that you would recommend or suggest to avoid these biases?
Well, one of the things is it's the reason why you need to have some kind of financial advice from other people, because even though everybody suffers from these biases, not everybody suffers from the same biases. So it's a good reason to talk out loud about money to a friend, to a colleague, to a financial advisor that you trust, etc. But also we can sort of build into our behaviors the kinds of actions that avoid these kinds of biases. So you can just agree that every time you get a raise, you're going to take half the raise. If you're going to get a 4% raise, you're just going to agree, I'm going to take half the raise before I even get it and put it into a savings account. So it's not even like I'm losing any money. I'm now only getting a 2% raise, but I'm also saving that money somewhere else. It just overcomes the psychological biases.
Gary, really quickly, I want to ask you before we let you go about the lottery. When the lottery goes up to hundreds of millions of dollars, this is a prime time where you see a lot of behavior.
You're really talking about yourself, right?
Well, I didn't want to call myself out, but we'll call myself out to the people. Yes, why do I keep playing the lottery when I have less and less of a chance of winning?
Because something called availability bias, and availability bias is that because life is so complicated, we need to make decisions quickly, and the trick we use is to make decisions off of the most obvious and easily accessible information. And what happens when people are selling, or when the lottery gets up to a big number, everybody starts talking about it more, and so I start to think like, oh my gosh, I should be investing in the lottery now because there's a $150 million jackpot, even though when there's a $25 million jackpot, in theory, it's still terrible odds, but it's way better odds than if it's $150 million, but nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about the lottery right now in New York City, for example, because it's not that high of a number. But as soon as it gets to a high number, all of a sudden everybody thinks, I gotta play it. It's because we make decisions based off the most obvious information, not necessarily the most important information, which is why, as you guys know, I was here on the floor of the stock exchange in 1987 when everything collapsed. People stopped investing for a while, or they took all their money out of the stock market because all of a sudden the most available information was stocks are dangerous, even though over the long run, stocks for most people provide the best chance of increasing their money over time. But when there's a glitch in the stock market, everybody's talking about it, and a lot of people who are unsophisticated or just normal investors get very nervous and they miss their opportunities to actually make money.
All right, well, Gary Belsky, author of Why Smart People Make Big Money Mistakes and How to Correct Them, thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure, thank you.
All right, coming up, how one entrepreneur made $2 million from his dorm room in college. First, though, the financial expert who calls herself the Invest Diva tells us how to stop running up those credit cards.
A lot of times when I talk to millennials, I realize that they're either unaware or in denial about their financial situation, and that is why I am here to give you advice and give you tips on how to become more financially aware and how to confront the problems. So let's say you already have got into $15,000 credit debt. How can you get out of that? Well, before even getting into savings or investing, the first thing you want to do is to get rid of your credit card debt. Don't use your credit card as a credit card. Use your credit card as a debit card. Don't ever go overboard with what you can actually afford. You want to get yourself into the habit of living below your means. So some very easy day-to-day tips on saving and paying off your credit card debt is, well, don't eat outside. When you go out to a bar, you get your first drink, that's fine. Say no to the second drink. Another thing is exercising outside or at home. Another easy to do budgeting and saving tip is when you go to grocery stores, always have a snack before you go in and always have a list, because it's very easy to do impulse shopping. So that can very easily actually add up to your receipt, and you don't want to do that. There are a ton of apps and cookbooks out there that help you cook within 20 minutes, and you can take that to work, and that is going to cut down on your credit card bill. Also is going to be healthier. One thing that I always tell my students is that no one can manage your money better than you do, because no matter how good a financial advisor is, they're not going to understand the depth of your issues or the depth of your personality, of your desires and your dreams. So learn how to finance, how to plan your finances yourself, and your future self is going to thank you for it.
Welcome back to Your Cheddar, presented by Ally. Ally is a leading digital financial services company committed to doing right by you and your cheddar.
Our next guest turned $12,000 of bar mitzvah money into $2 million and started his own hedge fund, all, of course, during his senior year of college. He's known as the Rebel Millionaire. Please welcome investor Tim Sykes. Tim, thanks so much for joining us here again on Cheddar.
Thanks for having me.
For those that don't fully know the story,
Yeah.
really quickly, can you just go through the background of how you made your first million?
Yeah, so I was a tennis player. My parents gave me control of my bar mitzvah money. They thought I would lose it all in the market, and instead I turned it into several $1 million trading low price stocks, just in and out, no big wins, but just trading the volatility.
And your investment strategy is shorting stocks. So walk us through what shorting is and why people decide to do it.
Yeah, mainly short bias because, I'm trading a lot of low price stocks, which are basically just junk. And I'm trying to figure out, is this junk going down? Short selling is basically like taking a negative position. It freaks people out. Like instead of buying 1,000 shares, you take negative 1,000 shares, but you profit when the stock prices go down. So if low price stocks are junk and they're theoretically going to fail or go to zero, you profit on the way down by taking a negative position. I don't try to hold all the way till zero. It's very tough to determine that, but I try and take 10, 20, 30% returns on the way down.
Well, Tim, this isn't for everybody, though. What type of investor would this be right for?
It's very speculative. Any kind of stock trading, any kind of trading is speculative, but especially low price stock trading and small cap trading is very risky. So be prepared to lose. 90% of traders do lose, but if you learn the rules and you master the discipline, you can grow your account, much more than like some diversification. If you have a few $1,000s to your name, it's tough to just try and make 10 or 20% per year. It doesn't really move, your needle. So for me, I want to try to grow my account exponentially, but understand it's risky.
And speak to us more about those risks specifically. You've been doing this for a while, so you know them well. What are the risks out there when it comes to shorting?
Yeah, so no matter how bad a company is, or if you think it's going to zero, Wall Street is like one giant cheerleading fraternity. So by betting against it, you have all the forces in the world against you. So I've seen outright scams just keep going higher and higher. You get squeezed on your shorts. It's called the short squeeze. So I have rule number one, cut losses quickly. Any stock, it doesn't matter if I'm down like 5%, I get out. Something was wrong with my thesis. Too many people let ego get involved. They double up, they triple up, they quadruple up, and that's how you blow up.
Well, I know your philosophy is about being a contrarian investor. How do you apply that across the board to general investing?
Yeah, so I think it's useful to learn about how to be a contrarian, even if you're just long biased, because shorts, we're licking our chops when something gets too overvalued, when it's going up too quickly. If you're long, you can start to learn how short sellers think. Like, wait a minute, this is getting a little too overextended. If a stock is up 100, 200, 300% in a few days or a few weeks, you need to learn to take profits. A lot of people think they're cheating if they exit their position on the long side or the short side. Just go for singles. Become like the Ichiro of the stock market. You don't need home runs.
You're also working with Pencils of Promise. Talk to us about what that is and your involvement there.
Yeah, so it's my favorite charity. I just donated $1 million a few weeks ago to build schools all over the world. They built 400 schools. My $1 million goes to building 20 schools in third world countries. And education really, I think, is so key, especially with the internet these days and, novel technologies like you guys. We're allowed to spread knowledge so much quicker than before, but these third world countries don't necessarily have access to it. So Pencils of Promise builds the schools, sustains the schools, and optimizes the schools, and I'm proud to donate.
Tim, do you also teach, though, your broader investing strategy to students?
Yeah, so this is what I do. I trade and I teach. I actually go back to my $12,000 every year to trade with a small account to show how to grow it. Because, with my kinds of stocks, it's impossible for me to trade like with $1 billion. That's why I'm a teacher and a trader. You'll never see me become a hedge fund manager. Again, my strategy isn't very scalable, but the lessons are good for average retail investors.
All right, there we have it. Tim Sykes, entrepreneur and self-made millionaire, started out in his dorm room. Thanks so much for joining us. And up next, how to make sure you have every dollar working hard for you. But first, here are some management tips from the father of our economy himself, Alexander Hamilton. Welcome back to Your Cheddar, presented by Ally. Ally is a leading digital financial services company committed to doing right by you and your cheddar. Now, U.S. stock futures pointed to a steady open today and what could be described as a, quote, calm before the storm mood. This is ahead of some risk events that investors have been focused on since the start of the week. Of course, experts say you are your own worst enemy when it comes to market fluctuations. What should you do, though, when there are changes in the market? Well, history implies nothing. Experts, though, advise not to try timing the market. Time in the market is more important than timing the market.
And there you can see a chart, the stock market over time going back to 1950 or so, right near record highs now, and generally speaking, an uptrend over the decades. We will show you one more bar chart here specifically about why time in the market is so important. So if you were fully invested, you would see in that first bar your return based on how much you had invested, and then it decreases based on if you had missed out on any major days throughout the course of history. All right, well, what we've described today is the sit back and relax model, and today's latest robo-investing tools make it easy for you to do just that. So Ally Invest, for example, is one example. Ally is challenging people to think about how hard their money is working for them with their hardest working dollar sweepstakes. Every dollar bill in circulation goes through thousands of transactions each year, and they pass through countless hands in countless different cities. Each bill has its own unique history, but some are working harder than others. So working with where'sgeorge.com, Ally will be putting 7,500 $1 bills in circulation over the course of the next 5 weeks. These bills are considered Ally hardest working dollars, and if found and claimed on allyhardestworkingdollar.com, which we are showing you right there on the screen, they could be worth up to $10,000 a piece.
Wow.
All right, so there you will also be able to find full rules and eligibility information, and to see if you have one of Ally's hardest working dollars in hand, go to the site and enter the $1 bill's serial number to confirm if you are eligible to redeem it for a potential cash prize. So let's walk everyone through exactly how you can do it. So this is the website that we have up here right now, and you see that exact web address right below the screen. I'm gonna scroll up a little bit here, and here I can click on check your dollars. So what I do is I pick up the dollar. You have to enter the serial number, the series number, write your full name and email as well. And if you're maybe unclear of where the serial and series numbers are, all you have to do is click this, where can I find these numbers? And there you see where the serial numbers are placed on the dollar bill, and then the series number as well. So that gives you a little walkthrough exactly of how you enter it. Again, full name and email as well, and then you can see whether or not you have one of those hardest working dollars.
I'm sure a lot of people are out there hoping that they do. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's Your Cheddar, presented by Ally. We'll be back next Wednesday at 9 a.m. Stay with us because opening bell is up next.